Okay. So, we have discussed about the search strategies related to the attributes. Now, we have to see that how we are going to tag elements with these attributes. When we are going to tag knowledge elements with the attributes, the basic objective is that since searching takes place based on the textual listing machine, we have to see that the content, that is the knowledge, okay, whether it is available formally and informally, has to be tagged with some set of attributes, because if these attributes are not attached or tagged with the knowledge, then search becomes very difficult. Okay. And when it comes to tagging elements with certain attributes, how we are going to define attributes, and these definition of attributes depends upon the organization. For in hospital organization, different kind of attributes could be used, like whether it is related to OPD, whether it is related to particular medicine, whether it is particular disease. In case of organization, it could be related to particular department or something like that. So, when you are going to define it, you have to have your own set of attributes depending upon attributes depending upon the nature of the organization, okay, so that you can tag knowledge with that content, right. Now, we are going to discuss that how tagging attribute for a knowledge content system works in a knowledge management system. Now, these are the different kind of attributes that could be used, okay, like A for activities, okay, B for domain, F for form, T for type, E for products and services, I for time, L for location. So, when we are going to discuss about these attributes, basically we have to see that these attributes have been defined based on a lot of research. So, A, it means that it is activity based attribute, right. D, it is a domain based, like it is a related to marketing or it is of HR or it is a function, and then F is for form based, okay, what kind of attribute it is. Then it is a type based attribute, and a product or service or location and time. So, what we are going to discuss now is that how these different kind of attributes are tagged with the knowledge content. Okay. So, we will discuss it one by one, starting with the first one, that is activities attribute. Now, when I am talking about activities, basically we are referring to the activities of the organization, right, with which a knowledge element is to be tagged. So, what are the various activities that an organization does? So, the activities for a organization is going to vary depending upon the nature of the organization, right. For example, activities of an educational institute may be teaching, research, training, consulting, right, admissions and these kind of things, placements. So, these are the different activities in which the organization is engaged in. I am talking about an academic institution, but when it comes to an manufacturing organization, then it could be related to logistics, supply chain, HR, recruitment, right. So, these could be R&D. So, these could be the various activities. So, we have to identify activities, okay, based on the knowledge, the nature of the organization, and then accordingly we are going to attach certain knowledge elements to these activities. Okay. And the value of these attributes must be defined upfront. Individual values need to be mutually exclusive. We make sure that it is not inclusive. It means two attributes are significantly different from each other, and it is exclusive, not inclusive, right. So, you have a very explicit model of activities and processes which is done as a part of the business, right, and each activities must be exclusive in the sense that it should not overlap with other activities, right. Otherwise, what happen, the same knowledge element would appear or would be tagged with the same activity into two different areas. So, that is to be avoided, and that is why it has to be exclusive and explicit. So, these are the two characteristics. So, depending upon the nature of the organization, you have to define these attributes related to each and every activities and make them exclusive and explicit depending upon the organization. Then coming to another way to define attribute, that is domain attribute. Okay. So, domain attribute is related to basically the knowledge items related to the subject matter, okay, whether it is related to mechanical engineering, whether it is related to electrical, whether it is related to management. Okay. So, that is how we are going to define the subject matter, okay. And accordingly we are going to add knowledge element, whether it is knowledge related to the management, whether it is related to say mechanical engineering, whether it is related to civil engineering, right. So, this attribute is basically a primary attribute that drives the meta search process. say for example, in case of organization, this knowledge related to recruitment, or this knowledge related to production department, or this knowledge related to advertising and promotions, right. So, we have to see that a knowledge element cannot be applied here, because what actually happens when you are going to model knowledge based at the level of concepts and relationships, okay, it is very at the micro level, and this domain attribute actually takes place at the macro level, because you are going to define the macro level domain, and accordingly you are going to attach knowledge elements related to these domains one by one. Okay. So, this is about the domain attribute. Then coming to type attribute. Okay. Type attribute is very more relevant compared to domain activity attribute, because with here you can formalize knowledge, that is you can go for a more structured codified knowledge which is captured either in electronic form or textual form. Okay. It could be from a document or also a report. So, you are going to add this element as in the form of a type. For example, okay, it could be related to process, that how certain activities are being done. So, it is related to procedure. Now, you know that these are the procedures that is to be followed, and this procedure is available either in document form or as a guideline or a manual, whatever it is, okay, and that is what you are going to follow. So, it could be related to a protocol or a reference material, or it could be in timeline, or the practices, that is either good practices, the best practices, worst practices. It could be available in a note or a memo or a failure report or success report. It could be a press release or a competitive intelligence. Now, if you look at these different kind of attributes, okay, you can see that this kind of knowledge is more codified, more formal, and it is captured in a very explicit form, okay, which could be electronic or textual. Electronic means that it is scanned and copied somewhere and it is kept over there, or it is available in the digital form. Okay. Now, textual means that it is available in a document or report form. Now, if you look at this, like guidelines, manuals, references, reports, notes, memos, okay, and reports, it is available in a document or report form, right. While others like procedures, best practices could be also available in the electric form, but something like procedures and other things may not be available in a document or report form. So, it is maybe you have captured it through certain processes and prepared a report on the basis of that, okay, and in that way the procedures is also available in document or a report form. So, this is related to what you call the type attribute. Now, after type attribute, we are moving to the next part of the next type of attribute, that is product and service attribute. Okay. Now, if you look at product and service attribute, actually it specifies that, okay, whether this knowledge element is related to particular product or particular services, right. And it is easy to define it related to product and services depending upon the nature of the organization, like if it is a manufacturing system. So, you have different product lines. So, you know the different produce that you have A, B, C. So, you can say that, okay, this knowledge element is related to produce A or B or C, okay, or this knowledge element is related to different kind of services, okay, maybe bedroll services, maybe nursing services, maybe other kind of services, okay. Say for example, in a hospitality service, okay, you offer different kind of services to your customers. So, you can identify, okay, these are the different type of services that we offer, and this is the knowledge base that which is tagged with this kind of service, and then you further you can identify, okay, process and other things associated with the product and service in right. Now, the thing is that yes, it has to be specific and it should not overlap. Okay. It does not mean that one product element, knowledge element should be also related to other product knowledge element, though there could be some overlap, but you try to make it as specific and exclusive as possible. Okay. For example, if you look at these three areas, right, strategic consulting, implementation consulting and e-commerce consulting, okay, these are three different areas of services, right. Strategic consulting is what? Strategic consulting is where the top management is being consulted, or top management consults about identifying the vision, mission and strategies of the organization. Okay. So, what are the processes, how to go about it is relates to this one. Okay. Now, when it comes to implementation consulting, suppose you want to go for a change management strategy, right. suppose you want to go for a change, right, then how are you going to execute and implement that change. So, knowledge related to that would be coming over there. Then e-commerce, now suppose you want to into e-commerce business, okay. So, anything related to that would come under that, but it does not mean that one see all of them are related to consulting, but the area of consulting is different. So, the knowledge element associated with these three areas should be distinct and specific, and they should not overlap with each other. Okay. Now, coming to time attribute is very important, because see any event that happens in the organization happens in a time frame, right, maybe in the past or in the present, right. Now, when you are going to analyze or tag or look at knowledge created or codified in a particular time, you put a stamp that okay, this knowledge was created during this period. The basic idea is that you can ensure that okay, that point of time, what was the context, what was the environment, what was the scenario in which this knowledge was created and was made useful, right. So, you have to very explicitly define it, specify it, that okay, this knowledge was created by this person at this point of time for this particular use. Okay. The idea is that if you have created a use an explicit knowledge, okay, and it is specified in terms of time, then you can see whether you are having similar situation, similar context or similar environment in which it could be used in future or not, right, because the time the environment keep on changing. So, if you do not understand the time frame or the context in which it was used, it may not be possible for you to use in the future. Now, see, when we are talking about different kind of attributes, okay, you cannot see you cannot not necessarily that you are going to assign a value for these attributes, okay, because it happened in a certain time period, it may or may not be useful to you. Okay. So, there is no point assigning a value. The only thing you have to see is whether it is going to be useful for you or not. Okay. But it is very difficult to assign a value for this kind of time attribute. Okay. Next is location attribute, where it happened. Okay. So, you need to point out the location, okay, so that you can track people with and outside the company, who did it, why did it. So, you have to find out that where this knowledge was generated. Okay. It is very important to identify the location attribute, and this helps you to specify, to find out and track people either within the organization or outside the organization. Okay. So, not necessarily that it is possible for you to identify and locate people who created knowledge, okay, and that then it becomes very difficult to assign any value. Okay. But it helps you to search or narrow down your search, because you know that okay, this is where this knowledge was created, and then you also add certain context and other elements to it. Okay. So, when you are going to make use of these attributes, you make sure that it has certain value, okay, and it is actually related to certain things which were relevant for you in the future, otherwise it may not be possible for you to use. Now, since we have been talking about knowledge management system, and we have to we have been talking about especially the infrastructure part, and we have seen that how we go about searching and then identifying certain attributes, so that user interface is easy, and then you go through filtering and other stages. Okay. Now, we have to see that when we are talking about a knowledge management system and data warehouse, in what way a data warehouse is going to be different from a knowledge management system. So, it is going to be different in terms of its content, context and size, and there are certain other variables which could be of useful. Now, if you look at the type of information that is managed by both a knowledge management system and data warehouse is different. Okay. See, a data warehouse basically has a very structured content, okay, while a knowledge management system is both informal and formal. Why I am saying this? Because you have both tacit knowledge as well as explicit knowledge. Okay. Tacit knowledge, which is basically shared or transferred informally, and explicit knowledge is formal, right. While a data ware has only formal explicit knowledge, but a knowledge management system will have both a formal, that is explicit or codified knowledge. Similarly, it may also have personalized tacit knowledge, which could be more informal, right, or anything that goes on in between formal and informal, or in between tacit and explicit. I mean, you have to see that whether the extent to which this knowledge is tacit or this knowledge is explicit. So, in a bipolar dimension, starting with tacit to explicit, everything that goes on in between could be a part of the knowledge management system, right. A data warehouse can be a part of the knowledge management system, because it has a highly structured content which is very formal, right, because it is going to provide you a source of data, okay, and it could be a part of a collaborative filtering system. But a knowledge management system as per se is not a data warehouse, because knowledge management system also include informal, explicit, personalized knowledge, which is not true in case of a data warehouse. So, that is about the content difference. Now, coming to the other part, that is the context difference. Okay. Though if you look at the context is that the environment and whether it is going to be relevant when it comes to use, right. So, definitely a data warehouse is going to provide you a lot of data, okay, and you have to identify which data is going to be important, and that is where you go for mining the data from the data source. And unless you are able to mine and interpret, it is not going to have any value for you, right. But because the data warehouse, the data is available in more ambiguous form, it is basically fuzzy, and it does not have any context, right. For example, if I provide you the databases of the number of students that have failed over a period of 10 years, right. So, what you have only the data about the number of students who have failed over a period of time, right, and then you can get this data from the warehouse, but it does not have any context, how they have failed, what happened to them, okay. All this information is not available in the database, right. So, you have to mine this data and then you have to interpret in order to provide the value to this data, otherwise you are not going to make use of this data. So, the context is very important, which is available with knowledge management system. In knowledge management system, whatever knowledge is available, you also have a context that okay, this was used by this, how it was used, because you are adding certain attributes to it, okay, so that it is easy for you to understand the time, domain, product attributes related to particular knowledge that is created, and then when it was used, who has used it, what is the relevance, when it can be used, which is not the case with the data warehouse, and that is where data warehouse and knowledge management system differs from each other. Now, come to the size. Okay. Now, if you look at the size, if you look at the warehouse, okay, it may be very big. Okay. The data size is very large in case of warehouses, and it could also very clean, structured and organized. But if you look at KM system, since it has limitations related to storage, it might be having very small to extremely large. It may vary depending upon your capacity to store the information in knowledge management system, which is basically technology enabled. So, it could be either very small or very big. Another thing is that the data that is structured is available in data warehouse, but the information or the knowledge that is available with a KM system could be either structured or unstructured, as I told you. Okay. So, these are some of the differences. Let us see that what are the other differences. Okay. So, the difference is on the content focus, performance and networks. Okay. Now, if you look at the content of a knowledge management system, okay, it is basically highly filtered information, okay, while the data warehouse is scrubbed, raw, clean and organized data. So, that is the major difference between KM system and a data warehouse, as I had told you. Now, look at the performance, which is going to enable to have a better performance, right. See, in getting or retrieving data from the knowledge management system, which has a basic complex system of retrieval and qualification, okay, unless you are able to do it, your performance may not be good. Okay. So, you also need to see that in order to have a better performance from a knowledge management system, you should be able to retrieve data, you should be able to make use of that data, okay, using certain tools and techniques, so that you can use it. Okay. but in case of data warehouses, you can straight away mine the data, the facts that is available there, and then you can organize and interpret it. Okay, and your performance may be good. Now, coming to another important factor, that is networks. If you look at networks, see, a data warehouse does not need to have a live network, okay, but it is very, very important for knowledge network, because you are going to draw resources from different sources within the organization, outside it. Okay. So, you also need an internet and collaborative platform, which is not the case with the data warehouses, because data warehouse is something that is idle. It could be used, it could be structured, okay, but it is not connected through the networks. Okay. So, you need to go to the source and identify it. Now, after discussing this layer, I am moving to the next layer, that is the application layer. Now, when I am talking about the application layer, you have to see that how we are going to integrate it. Okay. Basically, in order to use that information at the explicit level, the interface level, you go for collaborative filtering, and next level is the application layer. Okay. Now, basically, when I am going to talk about application level, that you have to see that what are the tools which is going to help you to integrate information, both tacit as well as explicit. Okay. Tacit knowledge, that is more personalized knowledge, and explicit knowledge, which is more codified knowledge, like databases, the repositories and warehouses. Okay. Now, you have to see that the people should be able to have access to both tacit as well as explicit information, right. So, you need to create and share context for that. Okay. So, and also you need to contextualize this in order to use it, and so that people who are going to make use of this find something that is worthwhile. So, that makes sense to him that, okay, this is the data or this is the information that is available to them, and that is how they are going to make use of it. So, unless you have tools to integrate both kind of information, which is available formally and informally, or available into what you call a tacit form or explicit form, okay, it is not possible for you to share it, and then it does not have any sense for use. Now, look at it. If you look at this, this is basically the knowledge management platform. Okay. So, what we are talking about, this layer, the application layer. Okay. This application layer is very, very important, because you have, see, if you look at this, you have, after this you have this middleware and legacy hardwares. Okay. So, this middleware and legacy hardwares basically is very, very important, and that what you are going to have, you have different kind of things like data warehouses, digital whiteboards, decision support systems, e-communities, voice over internet protocols, web conferencing, transport captures. So, see, you have to see that how formally and informally you are going to convert, and then you are going to see that how softwares and other things are going to integrate different kind of information at the knowledge management platform, right. So, what I have been talking about is that you have to see that how this application layer is going to be very, very useful. Moving further, you are going to use what, both intranet and extranets. Okay. See, then how this information is made available to the people. Okay. So, you have intranets and extranets, both intranets within the organization, or you have platforms, okay, like HTTPL, HTTP. If you are familiar with web based systems, you are familiar with these kind of terminologies, right. So, these protocols actually help you and have an organized system to have access to the data using internet, right, and that is why it is very important tool for accessing the data at the application level. Okay. Now, you also have the electronic yellow pages. Okay. What is the role of electronic yellow pages? Okay. Suppose you are looking for some information or some person. Okay. So, with a specific skill set or expertise, what you do? You go to these electronic yellow pages. Okay. Keyword and attribute tag search is done, like you point out what kind of person. Okay. You are, suppose you want to have a expertise in, say, in a particular field, right. Say you are looking for a neurosurgeon, right. So, you are going to suppose you want to have a neurobrain surgeon, right, more specific. So, you point out, and then you search for this kind of thing, the yellow pages, electronic yellow pages, and then it take you to another search from where you can find out the contact and other information details. Okay. and then you get a lot of details, and from there you can see that who is going to qualify to become the resource person which you are looking forward to. So, it is very important to have access to that, and then electronic yellow pages can help you in the process. Another thing is document management. See, but what actually happens in most of the companies, whatever information they have, they prepare a document and classify this document into different categories. Okay, and these documents could be also transformed into electronic format. Okay, and how this can be done? You can scan all the documents and put them into the web page or in your repositories. Okay, so these repositories does not only have data warehouses, but they could also have scanned documents of the lot of informations. Okay, which companies have created related to the processes, products, and other things. Okay, so this document management is another way to see or to develop a database of documents, and then you can classify documents related to this or that, a product or a domain or attribute, whatever it is. So, document management also helps you. The only thing is that you have to convert this document to an electronic form and put it into the repositories which can have access. Okay, like a book, a scanned book is put on the web page. Okay, so that is a document that is available or can be accessed through the internet. Like if you go to the Google Books, you can find lot of documents or books. Okay, and these are scanned or digitized, which can be available to you. Then moving to the project management tool. See, the project management tools may not be very useful here, but it basically helps you to go to organize and store documents properly, right. So, because knowledge management could be treated as a project, so you can apply some of the tools and techniques for organizing and storing documents. Okay, here. Okay. So, and then you see that whether the project was good. Okay. So, this is basically related to the project management. Then video conferencing and multimedia can also be done. Okay, basically for sharing tacit information. Okay, this is very important because it helps you to capture the information content which could be otherwise lost. So, if you are going through video conferences, you can go for recording of the information. Okay, or if you are using multimedia, especially the video content, okay, though there could be difficulties related to language and other things, but you can share knowledge. Okay, for any project, especially it is good for sharing what you call tacit knowledge. Then you have to find out certain other enablers, technology enablers to capture knowledge, like you can have whiteboards, digital whiteboards. Okay, these are indispensable, especially most of the organizations have today, and you can write on these boards. Okay, a company have a structured, formal, informal knowledge circuit central focus, where these whiteboards are good because here you can write anything which could be shared across the board vertically and horizontally, which people can find useful. Okay, and anybody can see it, right. Then you also have another important thing that is known as virtual share spaces, and virtual share spaces are nothing but those like have virtual meetings, collaboration of documents, and informal communications. Okay, that is done basically virtually, not physically. Okay, so you share certain spaces. Okay, like you have blogs, meetings, Skype, and these kind of things. So that is where you can share the knowledge. Okay. Then moving to mind mapping. Mind mapping is basically just like concept mapping. Okay, where you are going to capture the thoughts of the people either individually or collectively. Okay, so it is a good exercise basically, and that you have to see that what is going on in the mind of the people. If that can be captured, but it is good, but it is very difficult. But for that you need very good support. Like now we have certain electronic softwares which is put or attached to the people, so you can find out the kind of emotions, the kind of other things that is going on. That is how you will be able to know the kind of processes through which the person is going in a particular situation, and that helps you to take decisions and other things. Then you also have decision support systems, which are very intelligent today. These are softwares, basically case based reasoning systems, and it is very good for retrieving contextual information. Okay. And it provides you data related to the past, and which helps you to take decisions about the future. And that is where you are using a lot of data mining tools to identify trends and patterns. You are going to use certain statistical tools and techniques to look into it, and then you can get data from the warehouses. You can organize them, you can use certain statistical tools to get certain inferences to identify patterns, okay, and the trends, and that is how it is going to help you to do it. Then another important issue is peer to peer knowledge networks. It is also good because it helps you to support your knowledge management system, especially when you basically discuss it face to face. It is always good because peer to peer networking is very good for sharing knowledge, especially tacit knowledge. That is where you have direct exchange of knowledge, okay, with each other, and it could be done digitally as well. So finally, we are moving from affinity to infinity. Affinity means where you are going to very close, okay, you sympathize, you interact, you relate with the other person, where you have very close relations. So like peer to peer to infinity, where there is no end to it, right. So to start with, what happens, to start sharing information in your peer to peer networks, because you sympathize, you relate, you understand what they need, okay, and you create a network of peers. And then the moment you understand the potential value of this network, you try to increase it manifold, okay, in economic terms. It helps you to create more economic value, and ultimately what happens, it becomes so big that sometimes it is very difficult to manage, okay, and this integration becomes not very feasible. So you move from affinity to what you call infinity, and that is where things may go wrong also, okay, because this collaborative knowledge integration in an autonomous group is good, but if you expand it, then it is not going to help you, okay. So these are the things that we wanted to discuss related to knowledge infrastructure, okay. Thank you.